Did Rathma's prophecy already happen? I don't think so. In this video, I'll tell you how I think the prophecy fits the story of both the base game Diablo 4 and the first expansion Vessel of Hatred, and why it will most likely only begin to come true with the Lord of Hatred expansion. This will be a theory video and will obviously contain spoilers. You have been warned. Both the Diablo 4 campaign and the expansion campaign begin with Rathma's prophecy. But there's another version of this prophecy that we can find in the game and which we will get to at the end because it may be the biggest foreshadowing of what awaits us with the Lord of Hatred expansion. It started in dreams. I saw shattered images of the end of Sanctuary. The scales of a great serpent carried these visions, and so I went to visit him. My and the serpent's thoughts met, and the fragmented future was mended together.
I put it down in order, and the prophecy was born.
This is important information because it tells us that the prophecy we know is arranged in the order of subsequent events. I saw my corpse and from my mouth crawled hatred. It's ironic that the prophecy begins with these words, yet we begin each campaign with our hero very close to death. If Rathma was referring to himself, we can interpret this as his death, marking the beginning of the Mephisto era, the appearance of the bloodied wolf in the sanctuary. But are we really talking about this kind of hatred? Perhaps the hatred that appears in Rathma's death is Inarius himself.
The angel was my prisoner. I have seen his true face. He and Lilith are not as different as you might think.
Each had their own interpretation of the prophecy. According to the Cathedral of Light, the father is Inarius, who sacrificed humanity to achieve his own goals, while Prava, the mother, believed that only through faith can humanity be strong. Vigo's story can be seen as weak made strong. According to Lilith's followers, she is the mother who will create a new era for humanity, transforming the weak into the strong and make people able to face the coming hell. This can be seen in the events of Nevesk. The church's followers, or lambs, turned against their shepherd, no longer weak and sinful, but strong and confident. And then we found ourselves in Chaldeum, where tears of blood rained on a desert jewel, and Lilith has used the key to open the gates of hell. Everything seems to fit, but I don't think Chaldeum is the desert jewel. But we'll get to that later. Then came a spear of light, piercing hatred's heart, and he who was bound in chains was set free. According to the Cathedral followers, Inarius was destined to kill Lilith and regain his place in heaven. The prophecy could be taken literally, the spear of light being Inarius' spear and hatred's heart being Lilith's, hatred's daughter's heart. Inarius was destined to regain his freedom. However, if we watch the cinematic carefully, Lilith stops Inarius closer to the heart using his own weapon, and ultimately it's Mephisto, who in a twisted way regains his freedom, locked within the Soul Stone, which was doomed to fail at keeping Mephisto imprisoned, as it was never designed to imprison one of the prime evils. The Vessel of Hatred story doesn't cover every word of the prophecy like the base campaign, but many elements fit. We see the corpses of those killed directly by Mephisto's influence on Neyrelle. Urivar, who we can call a father, who literally burns the faithful on a pyre, and Prava, a reverent mother who will attempt to rebuild Cathedral from the ashes left by Urivar and guide it in the right direction. We may wonder if the weak made strong part isn't about Neyrelle, who through faith and persistence and much to Mephisto's annoyance is strong enough to resist the stone's influence. Or perhaps this part corresponds to the moment she receives Abulan's heart. This might be a far-fetched theory. Unfortunately, nothing seems to match the blood rain or the opening of hell, except perhaps metaphorically as Mephisto bringing hell to Sanctuary. We can, however, fit the final words of the prophecy, Akarat as a spear of light that pierces the harbinger of hatred, and although this defeats a fragment of Mephisto, he himself regains physical body and will walk freely through the sanctuary. And so the plot we know so far ends. However, it seems to me that the entire campaign of both Diablo 4 and the first expansion is just a prelude to the fulfillment of Rathma's prophecy. If you go back to the words of Rathma himself, who clearly stated that the prophecy was born from visions arranged with the serpent in chronological order, then the line "I saw my corpse and from my mouth crowed hatred" must be the first to come true. And of course we can say that maybe it was our hero who almost died both in Nevesk and at the beginning of the campaign in Nahantu. I think the best interpretation at the moment is that the corpse Rathma talks about is the corpse of Akarat, a prophet whose dead body became a puppet of Mephisto, and only words that come out of his mouth are the words of Lord of Hatred. I also find it hard to believe that we're supposed to consider Chaldeum the Jew of the desert when Ludgolain is literally called a Jew in Diablo 2.
There below us lay our destination, the shining
There's one more version of the prophecy that changes a lot. Within the Tormented Ruins dungeon near Nevesk, we can find the burnt parchment, and on it are words that seem familiar, yet different. I saw a serpent coiling in the fires of eternal conflict, saw my corpse, and from my mouth crowed hatred. The weak made strong. Tears of blood rained on a desert Jew. Hell was torn asunder. A spear of light piercing hatred's heart. A wise man with 7 arms. A fog of lies. Plagues of every name. I saw a child give birth to a mother, as hatred's sun set and that of terror and destruction dawned. A wise man with 7 arms. The Horadrim? Or perhaps the heroes we already know. 7 arms could represent a group of 4 people, assuming one of them only has 1 arm. So, us, Lorath, Neyrel, and who else? Oracle Queen? Or perhaps Tyrael. I saw a child give birth to a mother. We know Lilith will return in some form, and her blood is still active within us. In the Wanderer. The question remains, in what form will the Mother of Sanctuary return? As visions, in physical form, or perhaps an awakening of inner potential? In lore, Lilith already awakened the Nephilim powers with Vil Aldician. She may do so again. I saw a child give birth to a mother as hatred's sunset, meaning this can only happen after defeating Mephisto. Perhaps Lilith will achieve what she attempted in the main campaign, takes her father's power and becomes prime evil herself, as hatred's sunset and that of terror and destruction dawned. A clear indication that after defeating Mephisto we'll be left with Diablo and Baal. But that's just how I see it. I'm really curious how you interpret it. Do you think the prophecy already happened? Or is it still ahead of us? I wonder if any of my thoughts will turn out to be true. I'm sticking with my theory about Ludgolain being the desert jewel the most, probably because I have a strong fondness for Diablo 2. The Lord of Hatred expansion will likely dispel some of these theories, perhaps fulfill them, or raise even more questions than answers. Maybe everything we've seen so far was just the beginning, and Rathma's prophecy hasn't really started yet. So the real question is, what comes next? The new opening cinematic and other videos on Diablo channel related to Lord of Hatred actually add a few interesting details to these theories, but since I know some of you want to go into the expansion blind, I'm not going to spoil anything here. Leave a like, subscribe, and happy hunting!